Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Pro Wrestling Report. PrimeTime Saturday night for the first time ever live and right here on Blog Talk Radio. I want to thank you for joining us wherever you are all over the world. Damian Nelson coming here from the Pro Wrestling Report studios. In the absence of a brand new video episode of PrimeTime this week, we're bringing you this interactive episode of PrimeTime live right here on Blog Talk Radio, partially in celebration of being the number one sports show. It was Monday Night Meltdown, the number one sports show on all of Blog Talk Radio just this past Monday night. So I want to thank all of you for listening, and I want to remind you that you can be sure to never miss an episode of the Pro Wrestling Report by following us right here on Blog Talk Radio.
Don't forget to follow PWR right here on Blog Talk Radio right now. Be reminded of upcoming episodes and never miss Blog Talk Radio's most popular sports show. Follow PWR now.
And remember, follow us right here on Blog Talk Radio. Never miss an episode. Also, follow us on Twitter, at PWR Show on Twitter, at PWR Show on Twitter. We're going to be joined here shortly, or at least we're scheduled to be joined here shortly by David Hero, coming off the heels of a big GLCW show in downtown Milwaukee tonight. But without further ado, let's go right into this week's WWE Raw Report. Raw, of course, had its 1,000th episode this past Monday night from St. Louis, Missouri. We were there live in St. Louis for that show, and I got to tell you, as a wrestling fan, it was one of the most fun wrestling events I've ever been to. While there may not have been many wrestling matchups, those that did happen had significance, and we saw a lot of things happen on that night, including several huge returns, which we'll get to in a moment. But most importantly, overall, that it seems, coming out of the show, the end of the show, the heel turn of CM Punk. CM Punk turns heel and attacks not only John Cena after defeating John Cena and Cena's unsuccessful cash-in of the Money in the Bank briefcase, but also attacks The Rock, and Punk left standing in the center of the ring, and is obviously seemingly a bad guy now. Definitely want to hear your feedback on that. I know some of you were able to do that on the Meltdown. You can give us a call at the guest call-in number, which is 347-996-5278. We'll be taking your calls later in the broadcast here. But CM Punk goes bad, turns bad guy after the announcement that The Rock gets a championship opportunity at the Royal Rumble. Presumably, based off of what we saw this past Monday night, The Rock is going to be facing CM Punk at the Royal Rumble, and let's think of some of the verbal judo, if you will, that's going to be happening between those two leading up to that big matchup in January from Phoenix, Arizona, the site of this past year's Money in the Bank, and also TNA Bound for Glory coming up in October. I was surprised to see CM Punk make this turn. Didn't expect it, and really the thing that is interesting about that segment is if you look at who Punk stood tall over at the end of one of the biggest Raws, one of the most watched Raws in history. He stood over not only John Cena but also The Rock. The Rock and John Cena both laying down I guess as a result of of CM Punk and CM Punk's attack on both men. I thought it was a well-done segment. I thought it built intrigue, and I thought it sent us in the right direction going forward, captivating the eyes of all those in the audience that may not have expected to see a star such as CM Punk be shown in such highlight at the end of the episode. Let's get back to another point there, which is John Cena failing to cash in successfully his Money in the Bank briefcase. That makes him the first person to win and not successfully cash in Money in the Bank. I would venture to say you're not going to hear much about that going forward from WWE, even though they did do a little feature on it on WWE.com about whether or not he made a bad or the right decision. Cena, the first person in history to win the Money in the Bank briefcase and cash it in. You got to wonder if the payoff was there from the win at Money in the Bank just a couple of weeks ago. It wasn't all doom and gloom, though, for those like John Cena on Raw, because we got to see a lot of favorites return to WWE. Over the course of the last few weeks, we've had the legends come back and perform as Slater haters, if you will. Well, this time, the Slater hater of the week was a big surprise, because it was Lita who came back and said before she took on Heath Slater that she brought some protection, if you will, and that would be in the likes of not only JBL, the wrestling god, but also his partner, the former APA, Ron Simmons, the Acolytes Protection Agency back. And from there, also, you see some of the people, or all the people rather, that Heath Slater had faced over the last few weeks working on WWE Raw, such as Road Warrior Animal, which actually was on SmackDown last week, but Psycho Sid, Doink, and many others, including Vader, coming back. A fun segment. Again, a segment that really did pay off. I mean, there was a solid build to it, and it paid off at the end of the day. What we also saw was the kickoff of the show, which was the return of D-Generation X. D-Generation X back in WWE. They opened up the show after being introduced by Vince McMahon. And I know one man was extremely happy about the return of DX and seeing not just Shawn Michaels and Triple H, but three other guys come out in that Jeep to kick off the 1000th episode of Monday Night Raw. David Hero, a proud moment for you, a man who has worked with all three of those talents, and most recently, many of them as part of our big WrestleMania shenanigans party. The return of DX this past Monday night on Raw 1000, a moment indeed.
What a great moment that was. I mean, Road Dogg and Billy Gunn, their battle with their demons has been no secret whatsoever. They have both worked hard. They have stayed clean. They have over a year and a half of being sober. And for two guys that were told would never be welcomed back in the WWE again, Road Dogg and Billy, of course, now Road Dogg, Jesse James, one of the backstage producing agents for the company, and Bad beat Billy Gunn. I mean, for me, it was amazing. And yes, there was X-Pac, and X-Pac is X-Pac. You gotta love him for who he is. But talk about a moment with those five guys in the ring. You just felt it. I mean, you know, Damien, you and I, we've worked with Road Dogg and Billy and X-Pac, you know, on different GLCW shows, like you mentioned at the Miami Shenanigans party. Humbled, you know what I mean? The fall from grace, and they fought, they scratched, they clawed their way back, and they wound up in the opening segment on Monday Night Raw. And it wasn't just a pop, oh wow, there's the X. That place went nuts. They came out in the Jeep, and you could just see it in their eyes how good it felt for them to be back on Monday Night Raw, back on the big stage, not working the indies in front of a couple hundred people, but to be on the second biggest show of the year, I guess you could say, was the Monday Night Raw 1000.
Absolutely, and you know, it was a special moment, and we had not seen, as you said, those five come together in a WWE ring for quite some time, and it was the right way to kick off the show. Vince McMahon comes out, welcome to Monday Night Raw, and then introduces DX. It was the right thing to do, the right way to start that big show in St. Louis. And talk about shenanigans, as we talk about the Shenanigans Beach Party from this past WrestleMania. Coming soon, we'll have details on our Shenanigans Party for New York in conjunction with that WrestleMania coming up next year, but the shenanigans were all weekend long.
St. Louis. Hashtag St. Louis shenanigans. And Damian Nelson, I don't know how those videos leaked, got viral with you in your Save Cody chants, not only on the streets of St. Louis, but back in our own suite at the Hilton.
Well, you know, here's the thing. The campaign continues, and when we talk about SmackDown later, we'll see the success of that campaign to save Cody.
Oh, yeah. You did a fantastic job.
Well, he was in a World Heavyweight Championship matchup. Your guy, Alberto Del Rio, was not. Anyways, be that as it may, several more things happening on Raw this past Monday night, including Brock Lesnar returning to confront Triple H later in the night, which just didn't bring out Triple H, but also brought out the billionaire princess, Stephanie McMahon, who was looking ooh-la-la as good as ever before. And what a segment. They talked a lot, but they said so much. You can't discount the ability of Paul Heyman. You can't discount the ability of Triple H. And you really can't discount the ability of Stephanie McMahon. They sold that match for SummerSlam in that segment better than any match has been sold in recent history.
You know, you talked about CM Punk's pipe bomb of last summer. When you have Triple H and Stephanie McMahon Helmsley and you have Paul Heyman in the ring, those three are pipe bombs because, you know what, the gloves are off. I mean, when Stephanie commented on his failures with ECW and his time in WCW and his last run in the WWE, and I was trying to, you know, get off of Brock Lesnar's, you know, tail feathers, coattails, whatever you want to say, they kind of mean that. I mean, they're not pulling any punches. And then when Heyman says the billionaire princess always get what she wants and he makes fun of Triple H, you feel it. And that right there is what draws money. When you can feel animosity and the uncomfortableness and the hatred. I mean, let's face it. I honestly don't believe they went to go find Paul Heyman. I'm willing to bet Brock Lesnar said, hey, I want Paul to come with me. I want him to come along. He's my confidant. I trust him. I'm comfortable with him. He'll look out for me. And they kind of had Vince and company over the barrel. And you know what? They have put together some great TV. Even though it's been limited, Paul Heyman is the guy that is selling that match at SummerSlam more than Brock Lesnar and Triple H.
And let's not lose sight of the fact of who Paul Heyman was standing in the ring with. The two people who are essentially running WWE right now, Stephanie and Triple H. You can't lose that moment. A great segment, but a lot of people didn't think it was so great. They thought that Brock Lesnar was shown to be a coward because he didn't come out until after Paul Heyman had accepted the match for him after he wasn't going to accept the match. Well, you got to realize that was all part of the story, and I think it made it that much better.
I mean, they already said Brock had no interest in doing it, so why would he come out? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
For me, I didn't like how that segment was booked. I would have rather have seen Brock break Triple H in the ring in front of his wife. That's where the heat is. That's where Triple H gets the sympathy. Like, wow, can he beat Brock Lesnar? The 2 times in the ring with him, Brock has left him laying.
Yeah.
Right now, it's 1-1. Now, and who knows if they have any more face-to-face meetings from now until SummerSlam. I'm sure that they will. But right now, I was like, okay, it's a fair fight. I want to see Triple H finally be an underdog in a match that does not include The Undertaker at WrestleMania.
Do you believe that Triple H can beat Brock Lesnar? In your heart of hearts, do you believe that in a fight, as you always equate whether or not things are believable in a fight, that Triple H could beat Brock Lesnar?
In a fight, I don't know. You know, I mean, I'm sure Triple H can hold his own with anybody. I mean, he's a big, strong guy. He knows how to work. He's a shooter at times. But Brock Lesnar is just a beast. And you know what? He may not have had the greatest UFC run, but he was still the UFC world champion. I don't care if it was against guys that he should have beat or whatever. Right. The fact of the matter is he's a fighting machine. He's a legitimate fighting machine. And I don't know if Triple H can handle all that.
Yeah. Well, we saw several other legends come back on this, the 1000th episode of Raw. Bret Hart in a special ring announcing gig, and in the match he did ring announce, it was for the Intercontinental Championship. Christian versus The Miz. The Miz now back on a pedestal, now holding gold. He's a Triple Crown champion. The Miz, the brand new Intercontinental Champion, after a great matchup with Christian. It's almost a new Miz, David.
Well, it is a new Miz. I mean, first of all, I don't know how many of you know this, but I did, in fact, bump into The Miz on Sunday night with the lovely Linda Kay and Ms. Rachel, and we chatted for a moment, and we took some pictures together. We talked. I said, listen, people are blaming me for the failure of your career so far. You're no longer on Team Super Friends. You're back on the Nelson family. And he laughed. He's like, yeah, I heard about that team. I says, you know what? I wish you the best. I hope that you get your steam back, your heat back, you go forward, and be the star that you were a year and a half ago. You thought I was being a smartass, but I really honestly meant it, my heart of hearts. What happens? He goes on Monday Night Raw after the Super Friend blessing and becomes your new Intercontinental Champion. Now, the beauty about
You're taking credit.
Nelson,
You're taking credit.
The beauty about it is it did happen on a pay-per-view. So you got no points whatsoever.
Well, there are some who say that there should have been points for this since it was, as you said earlier, the second biggest show of the year.
Oh, yeah. Well, people say a lot of things. It was good for Miz. He needed that. And you know what? I was like, wow, if he comes out and loses to Christian on this show, I don't know what's going to happen to that guy. But
yeah.
you know what? If you look at it, before CM Punk did his shenanigans, they are in dire need of some strong heels on the Raw brand.
Yep. And, you talk about strength, you talk about strong, you talk about returns. I think one of the big mark-out moments of the night for me was seeing the epic return of Sean Mooney to WWE. It's those details, those little things that maybe not everybody got, but
what did you call him at first? Oh my God, there's Todd Pettengill. You had no idea that was Sean Mooney, brother.
The vantage point I had of the Titantron at the time was it was blurry. There was I was talking to fans and
why don't you just admit you were sitting next to Linda?
Well, yeah. Hey, come on, Sean Mooney. Who?
That was pretty awesome. Was Sean Mooney even on Raw ever?
Oh, absolutely. He was in the opening few moments of the very first episode of Raw when Bobby Heenan was trying to get into the building and Sean Mooney wouldn't let him in.
That was great. I mean, and he looked like Sean Mooney. It's like he hadn't aged at all.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talk about shenanigans, and it was fun to see Sean Mooney and Mean Gene Okerlund just chilling at the hotel and having a few spirits after the show on Monday night as well. Just a fun show, David Hero. Just fun 3 hours and 20 minutes of being a wrestling fan. Too many shows, too many people have sat out there and picked it apart. This wasn't good. They shouldn't have done this. They shouldn't have done that. What sense does this make? You know what? Screw it. It was fun. And if you can't sit back and have watched this show and call us marks, call us whatever you want, if you can't have sat back and just watched and enjoyed this show, there's a problem with you as a wrestling fan.
It was a celebration. It wasn't meant to be a show that's going to further storylines. It was to showcase what they've done over the last 1,000 episodes.
Yep. And overall, the big takeaway was the CM Punk heel turn. Surprising to you, David?
You know what? It was, but it was weird because you're sitting there and you're watching and you just saw Punk's body language. Both times Rock came in the ring, he looked frustrated. He looked like he was fed up. It was almost giving it away that he had had enough with The Rock. The Rock coming in. Let's face it, for the past year that CM Punk has been champion, after SummerSlam, he's kind of lost some steam.
He's lost it all.
Well, he's lost a lot. Since then, he has yet to really headline a pay-per-view except for one. Okay? Mm-hmm. He's been overshadowed by The Rock, by John Cena, by Triple H, by Undertaker, even by big, sexy Kevin Nash. Mm-hmm. So he finally had his breaking point on a show that the world was watching. The best ratings they've had in a long time was Monday night in St. Louis. And if you were going to do anything, that was the night to make a change, and that's exactly what they did.
Also, speaking of changes, there was no change to the marital status of Daniel Bryan or AJ. As a matter of fact, AJ was named the new general manager of WWE Raw. A bit of a left field play there, a bit of a surprise. But the Doctor of Style, Slick, presiding over the wedding, they just use people so greatly. You look at Dude Love coming out with Brodus Clay. It was everybody on top of one another, and it all made so much sense in the context by which they used them. But AJ now moves forward as the general manager of Raw. You've talked about how much she must be liked by the likes of Vince McMahon. Does this put that official stamp of approval on AJ?
Oh, yeah, there is definitely a McMahon stamp on AJ. Take it however you want to read it. But my good God, I mean, she went from being on NXT to now one of the top players. She was the only diva that really had any TV time.
Only, yeah.
The only. The other
there
girls
were rumors that Kelly would be back. She wasn't.
I mean, you saw Layla, but that's just because, she's the Divas champion. Otherwise, she probably wouldn't have been on either.
Yeah.
So it was very, very interesting how AJ Lee has been booked. And, you know what? Well, I take that back. Lita was on as well, and Mae Young. But those were the legends. I mean, imagine sitting in the booking meeting when they say, okay, we're going to have CM Punk take out The Rock, and we're going to announce AJ as the general manager of Monday Night Raw. How many people scratch their heads? I wish I could have been sitting in Vince McMahon's office with CM Punk and The Rock, and Vince goes, Punk, you're going to take out The Rock tonight. And you got to figure The Rock is thinking, are you kidding me? I'm G.I. freaking Joe. You know what I mean? So, I mean, it's interesting how business is being done. The Rock versus CM Punk, they're now laying the groundwork for that for the Royal Rumble. And you know what? The Rock is doing business. Say what you want about The Rock coming in and stealing somebody's spot. He sold his ass off for CM Punk with that clothesline and took that going to sleep like a champ.
Absolutely he did. Absolutely he did. Just a fun show. We spent more time on it than I planned to, but it was that good of a show. And
we can talk about Raw all you want. SmackDown was fine. It was okay. But listen, people tune in to hear about our thoughts on Raw. And look at everybody we mentioned DX, we mentioned Lita, we mentioned Mae Young, all the legends that came out and beat up your boy Heath Slater. You know, there was a 6-man tag on there. You know, there was an Intercontinental Champion. You had Hornswoggle and Santino handing out the new wrestling buddy. You had Jim Ross come back. You had Howard Finkel.
Yes.
I mean, they crammed so much stuff into 3 hours. It was amazing. Even Zack Ryder got TV time on this episode.
With that being said, would you consider this to have been the best booked show of the year?
You know what? It was probably the most difficult show they ever could have booked, and they pulled it off.
Yeah.
Everybody was on that show except for Cody Rhodes.
Well, because he was getting ready for his World Heavyweight Championship match on SmackDown last night against Sheamus.
Yes, he did, and he did extremely well for about 4.5 minutes.
There is a brand new number one contender over on the SmackDown side of things as we move into the SmackDown report, and that is Alberto Del Rio.
Hey, ADR, you know, who else is it going to be? Right
Cody.
now, they are booking Sheamus to be unstoppable. If you want your boy Cody to be just another speed bump on Sheamus's run, fine, by all means. But let Sheamus and ADR have their program for one more month and then go into something different. I mean, maybe they're saving Cody for a bigger match at SummerSlam. Who knows?
Likely that they are. But, you know, I think one thing's for sure is that SmackDown was overshadowed by anything that happened on Raw this past week. And as you said, that's definitely what everybody's talking about. However, there was another show in between those two, which was Impact on Thursday night. And we saw a talent get a contract. I believe Sam Rhodes is his name, in the Gut Check, where the show really focused around that, the Bound for Glory series continuing to move forward, and the Aces and Eights. And one quick question about the Aces and Eights, David Hero. They've tried to tease that it was James Storm behind them after teasing last week that it was Bobby Roode behind them. Is there enough intrigue in who these guys are and why they're there to be spending as much time on it as they are?
The problem with Aces and Eights is everyone's saying it's like a watered-down nexus. Yeah. They need, when those masks or hoods or scarves or whatever come off of Aces and Eights, there better be somebody substantial in charge. Because right now, you have these guys beating down the top stars in TNA. Hogan, Sting, Aries, Rude, Storm. They better be something special. Because if Kurt Angle, because if it's not going to mean anything.
Right. Well, before you go, David, we need one thing from you.
Yes.
As this is PrimeTime Live for the first time ever here on Blog Talk Radio in celebration of being the number one sports show on Blog Talk Radio again this week and the big 1000th episode of Raw. Who, of all these people you have to pick from this week, who is going to be the star of the week?
Oh, this week's PWR star of the week. You know who I'm going to give it to? Just because of what he's done, I'm going to give it to Vincent Kennedy McMahon. Because he lasted 1,000 episodes against the world, against WCW, against, what was that television guy that was against them for the longest time?
Sam Mushnick?
No, him and Brent Burrell or whatever it is, that jabroni. You know, he's been a survivor. And as much as he loves WrestleMania, which is without a doubt the granddaddy of all wrestling events, bar none, there's something special about having 1,000 episodes on primetime television, and he did it.
That he did, and congratulations go out to Vinnie Mac Daddy, this week's star of the week. David, how was the show today down in downtown Milwaukee, on the east side of Milwaukee, rather?
I ain't gonna lie, Casablanca Rumble number 3, the GLCW show on Brady Street, it's the after-party shenanigans are still going on. Linda Kay got up on the drag queen stage. She's up there dancing. I'll be posting.
Whoa!
She's dancing with drag queens. I'm not saying she is a drag queen.
Oh, okay.
There's just nonstop shenanigans. We're at Casablanca. They got hookah. They got sangria. Damian Nelson, you are missing out. I got to get back to the party. I got video. I'll be uploading it later.
Oh, that's gonna end
I'm
well.
telling you, brother. You know, I've been trying to pass out some of these Nelson family T-shirts, and everyone keeps passing them back to me. They're not interested.
Well, it sounds like you got to go, David. Thank you so much for joining us here on this special edition of PrimeTime Live. And we'll be back again on Monday on Meltdown. We're going to take a quick time out, and when we come back, we're going to get to a couple of your phone calls here. So remember, if you're listening on hold, go ahead and press the 1 button to let us know you want to talk. This is the Pro Wrestling Report PrimeTime Special Live Edition here on a Saturday night on Blog Talk Radio.
Follow us on Twitter for breaking news, live wrestling chat, and pure hilarity. Head over to twitter.com/PWR show and be part of the conversation.
All the little birds on Jaybird Street love to hear the robin go tweet, 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 robin, robin, tweet, tweet, robin, 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 tweet.
Subscribe to the Pro Wrestling Report on YouTube. We promise we'll never rickroll you, but we might just chokeslam you. Click the subscribe button now and be part of the revolution.
Welcome back here, ladies and gentlemen, to a special edition of Pro Wrestling Report Prime Time. Saturday night, we're live here on Blog Talk Radio. I want to thank David Harrell for joining us, talking about Raw 1000, a little bit of Impact, a little bit of SmackDown as well. And as we do here, we love interacting with our great listeners and viewers all over the world. Let's go to the phone zone, and let's take our caller, who's been waiting on hold for a while here. Caller coming to us from the 603 area code. Caller, what's your name and where are you calling from?
Hello, my name is Michael Wang. How are you today?
I'm good. What's your question?
My greatest wrestler is Yokozuna, correct?
As you know, Yokozuna is no longer with us. He's in the WWE Hall of Fame. So thank you very much for that call, and don't need to spend any time talking to you there. But going back to the week in wrestling and looking back at what happened and looking back at just the spectacularness that was Raw 1000, a solid Impact as well, a very good SmackDown. We're going into SummerSlam. The question that one must ask themselves is, did WWE recreate the momentum? Did they recreate the momentum that they did and had coming out of WrestleMania? You got to think that maybe they did. Look at the big matchup we're looking at SummerSlam. Brock Lesnar versus Triple H. It's now official. And that is going to be, of course, the centerpiece, it seems, of SummerSlam, coming to us from Los Angeles in just a few weeks. David Harrell says that Vince McMahon is this week's Star of the Week. I want to thank everybody who's been chatting along with the show here on Blog Talk Radio as well. And I always want to remind you to check us out Monday nights right after WWE Raw right here on Blog Talk Radio for Monday Night Meltdown right here each and every week. Primetime will be back in its video form next week, next Saturday night on Channel 24, My 24 Milwaukee, and also online, pwrshow.com, and on YouTube. I want to thank everybody for tuning in and joining us here for the Pro Wrestling Report Prime Time. We'll see you again Monday night for the Meltdown. Thanks for tuning in.